So I was 10 when I stopped being able to walk on a regular basis. Anyway, so how old were you? Where were you when? So when I learned that my grandpa had died, well, for me, like, when I found out that he wasn't able to talk and communicate, I was in the hospital. And that was sort of the beginning of my loss, because I knew he probably wouldn't ever come back, just based on, like, what I had known health-wise from such a young age, knowing my own history. But when he died, I was playing a computer game, and my mom had gotten off the phone, and she had told me that he died. And my first reaction was, okay. And then my second reaction was, it was weird because I was sad, but then I was okay with it because, like, I knew that he was not in pain anymore. And this is actually going to sound really weird, but when my grandpa was in the hospital, he dealt with suppositories a lot. And when I was little, the worst thing in the world were suppositories. They were like the object that the devil used or whatever, but I hated them. So I think I was just happy because I knew I didn't have to deal with suppositories anymore. But, like 5 minutes after it happened, after I realized what had happened, I started bawling. And I really wanted him to come back. I didn't want him to be in the state that he was. I wanted him to be how he was before the accident, because him and I always had lots of fun together. He teased me all the time, which was awesome, and he would play dolls with me, and I loved playing dolls when I was little. So, yeah. Who did they involve? So the death involved my mom, my entire family, really, because it was a crime committed. So we spent a lot of time, well, the adults spent a lot of time talking about what they wanted to happen to the person who killed my grandpa. But, yeah. So it involved my entire family. And the loss, I think the loss just involved, the loss with me not being able to walk just involved me and my parents, really. Because, like, I can still walk, but it's, like, bad for my body. Like, doctors discourage it. So, yeah. So it involved me, my doctors, my parents. This video is all over the place. But, yeah. What were the psychological, emotional, and cognitive, environmental, spiritual reactions you were aware of yourself following the loss and death? Okay, starting for the death, the psychological things where I was very sad. And whenever we would go visit my great-grandpa in the hospital before he died, me and my cousins would always stop in the cafeteria and get donut holes. Like the round, there's not an actual hole, but it's basically tiny donut. Okay, you know what a donut hole is. But anyway, but for the longest time, I could not eat a donut hole without crying. Like, it just reminded me of them. So, yeah. Spiritually, I don't think my family went to church. So, on, so neither of my parents are religious, but my grandparents are religious. Or my parents, my mom's parents, and the whole entire side of her family are Mormon, and my grandma is form of Christian. Not quite sure, but yeah. So we've never really gone to church as a family. So spiritually, things didn't change. I think I was happy because I knew he was dancing with Jesus, and because my great grandparents were always talking about how when people died they go dance with Jesus, so that made me happy. But like I didn't go to church any more often than I usually would. But knowing that he was happy and free of pain and with Jesus, I guess, made me happy. I don't like talking religion, it freaks me out. So I'm gonna move on. Emotional, I was very sad when my grandpa died. Cognitively, I knew he was gone. I probably understood more than like my other cousins did because like medicalness was just ingrained at me at this point. So because I knew what was going on, I listened a lot more to like the nurses. So like everything, they're like, okay, grandpa's brain is swelling, grandpa blah blah blah, grandpa can't talk. I knew everything that meant. Like I knew what that meant. So that cognitively, I feel like it made me mature more because before then I was just dealing with my own medical stuff. But now dealing with other people's, it was like, oh, this doesn't just happen to me. Like, it's like, it happens to other people too. So I think that's cognitively what happened. With your family. With Grandpa, I didn't want to talk about it with my grandma, which was his daughter, because I knew that would make her sad. But I did. I talked about it even though it made me feel uncomfortable. I, in the beginning, we talked about it a lot, like right afterwards. But as time went on, we talked less and less. And something that I realized is the closer we get to my great-grandfather's death anniversary, the closer my great-grandma, because my great-grandma's still alive and kicking. I mean, she's 92 and healthier than I am. But when we get closer and closer, she gets more like withdrawn and more like quiet. And in the beginning, we were like, why is grandma weird, acting weird? And then my grandma, not my great-grandma, was like, it's because we're close to her death. His death, I mean. So, yeah, that's that. Yeah, we don't talk about it a lot. The only thing I remember talking about recently is what happened criminally, because when I was younger, all that I understood was she hid him while eating Cheerios and cleaning her windshield, like her windshield wipers. But I just wanted to know, like, if she went to jail and all that stuff. But yeah, that's really, we don't talk about it that often. It was definitely not ignored, but it wasn't like embraced. But yeah. It wasn't like, okay, let's talk about this and like actively mourn it together. We all sort of like went our separate ways. Okay. Discuss the first funeral or grief ritual you attended. Identify how you were prepared for it, your memories and your feelings and experience about it, its impact on you. If you were discouraged from attending this, discuss your understanding and rationale for this. So my first funeral was Grandpa Gene's funeral, which is the same person we've been talking about. And so I remember being in this church and my dad carrying me. And I just remember seeing the casket. And I was very terrified at the thought of looking at his body. I remember seeing like the top of his head and then burying my head in my dad's shoulders so I couldn't see it. And we just walked really fast, like, because I knew I was terrified. Because it was my first funeral and I didn't know what to expect. The next thing I remember is my grandpa was in the military, so during the burial, they shot weapons. They did gunshot in the air, and I remember my parents covering my ears because I have really bad ear sensitivity. And I was like, why are you covering my ears? Why are you covering my ears? And then it went off, and then it was just so shocking. But I feel like my mouth hit the ground. I didn't know what to do. And the next thing I remember is my cousin is handing my grandma the bullets, my great-grandma the bullets that came out of the gun. And military people folding up the flag that the casket was covered in. Yeah, that's the only thing I remember. I don't remember being sad. I just remember being very confused. I was like, why are people shooting guns at my grandpa's funeral? He's already dead. Why are you trying to kill him again? That's literally what I thought. That was my 5-year-old rationale. But I was encouraged to attend. How it impacted me now, I just went to a funeral a few months ago, and I was very confused. The funeral was fine. I was able to look at her body fine. But when we got to the burial, I didn't connect that the gun shooting was military related. So I was like, hey Mom, are they gonna shoot guns at Valerie's funeral? And my mom was like, no, Valerie was not in the military. So yeah, my grandpa's funeral, that burial was the only thing I knew, so I figured all burials were the same. So yeah, that's how it affected me. And then describe your coping mechanisms for dealing with grief and loss. I definitely talk about it with people. I'm not one of those people who shoves it down. I had a friend die when I was a junior, and I found out that she died while in my biology class. And are my parents gonna come in here? Are we good? We're good. Okay.